The wedding of Queen Charlotte and King George III. Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz came to Britain as a young girl to marry King George III. They ended up having a marriage filled with love and family life, becoming a central couple among the important figures of their time. However, despite many happy years, her life was later marked by several sad events. Queen Charlotte and King George III shared nearly 60 years together. Their marriage, though arranged, grew into a deep and devoted partnership, but it eventually faced many challenges and sadness. Charlotte was born in 1744 in the Palace of Miro, located in the tiny Principality of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, which is now part of Germany. She had a basic education that focused on practical skills like managing a home, but she was kept away from the complex world of politics. Charlotte only started to experience court life when she was 12, after her brother became the Duke following their father's death. However, the court politics she encountered in her homeland were very minor compared to what she would face in England. George and Charlotte got married on the very day that she arrived in England. In 1760, when George III became king at the age of 22, after his grandfather George II had died, he was 22 and single. His mother, Princess Augusta, and his advisors wanted him to get married quickly. She urgently needed a queen to help secure the royal line. To find the right match, politicians put together a list of suitable Protestant women. Princess Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, known for her sweet nature and lack of political ambitions, stood out as the ideal choice. George selected her, and suddenly the young, sheltered girl was poised to become the queen of a country she had never seen, alongside a man she had never met. Princess Charlotte, just 17, from a small North German region, seemed a good match because she probably didn't know much about political games. She proved them right. Shortly after getting married, George III told her to stay out of politics, and she was happy to do so. In July 1761, King George announced his plans to marry Princess Charlotte. A team led by Earl Harcourt went to Germany to bring her to England. They arrived in Strelitz on the 14th of August, and her brother, Duke Adolphus Frederick, signed the marriage contract the next day. After 3 days of celebration, Charlotte left for Britain on the 17th of August with a British team. They faced 3 storms at sea and didn't land in England until the 7th of September. They went straight to London, arriving the next day at St. James's Palace, where Charlotte and George met for the first time. After a proxy wedding in her homeland, Charlotte arrived in England in September 1761. Crowds filled the streets to see her as she travelled to St. James's Palace. Overwhelmed and nervous, Charlotte nearly fell at King George's feet when she exited her carriage, but he kindly supported her, setting a tender tone for their introduction. That same evening, just 6 hours after her arrival, Charlotte and George were married in a small ceremony at St. James's Palace, conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury. Only close family, the travel party from Germany, and a few guests were there. 2 weeks later, they had their coronation at Westminster Abbey. When Princess Charlotte's procession arrived at the small private gate of the palace, she was first greeted by the Duke of York. Soon after, she found herself facing the king, surrounded by his senior officers and ladies-in-waiting. It was a nerve-wracking moment for everyone involved. In fact, it was so overwhelming that Charlotte almost knelt in front of the old Duke of Grafton, mistaking him for someone of higher rank, until she was corrected. She then tried to kneel before the king, but he gently stopped her and instead kissed her hand. Understandably, Charlotte was visibly shaking as she met these important figures. However, when the Duchess of Hamilton, already twice married, gave her a reassuring smile, Charlotte responded with a quick wit, saying, "You may laugh. You've been married twice, but this is all new to me." Later that day, after meeting Princess Augusta, the Princess Dowager, Charlotte and George were married at 9 p.m. in the Chapel Royal, officiated by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Secker. Queen Charlotte maintained her cheerful demeanour throughout her wedding day. When instructed to kiss the peeresses, she did so willingly, with a smile. However, the sight of her 10 bridesmaids in long trains seemed to overwhelm her for a moment. She exclaimed in surprise, "Mon Dieu, such a number of dresses!" The bridesmaids included notable ladies, and they were all dressed in their finest, added to the grandeur of the ceremony. For her wedding attire, Charlotte chose a striking outfit that featured an endless mantle of rich violet and purple velvet, lined with luxurious ermine, draped over a gown of white satin and silver. Although this opulent mantle, intended to be held in place by a cluster of pearls, slipped down her shoulders, dragging her dress along with it, she managed to handle the mishap gracefully. Her appearance was further embellished with magnificent jewels, including a diamond tiara, a necklet, and stomacher, valued altogether at an impressive £90,000. These jewels sparkled brilliantly, capturing the attention of all those present, including Horace Walpole, whose accounts vividly describe the scene. Their wedding night was busy. After dining with the royal family, Charlotte quickly changed into her wedding dress, the same one that she'd wear for her coronation 2 weeks later. Unfortunately, due to weight loss from seasickness during her journey, her dress and its heavy jewels kept slipping off her shoulders. Despite the wardrobe challenges, a simple diamond ring George had given her upon her arrival became her most cherished possession. The public quickly fell in love with the young royal couple, who settled into a surprisingly normal domestic life. Charlotte dedicated herself to learning English, encouraged by George, and together they hosted small musical gatherings. George made it clear that Charlotte should avoid politics and watch out for ambitious courtiers, a directive she gladly followed. Family life was central for Queen Charlotte. She and George had 15 children over the next 22 years, with their first son destined to be the future George IV. Charlotte was actively involved in their upbringing, managing their education and spending time with them daily. While she played a significant role in her children's lives as they grew, she wasn't always warmly received, marking her path with both dedication and challenges. 2 weeks following this memorable day, the couple's coronation was held at Westminster Abbey, marking the beginning of their long and eventful life together. King George and Queen Charlotte's marriage lasted 57 years, during which they welcomed 15 children into the world. Their time together was marked by both personal joys and the challenges of a long reign.